What is something that was crazy at the time but proven to be correct? These spokes in the rings of Saturn, originally observed by an amateur and dismissed as an optical illusion for the better part of a century, the Voyager probes confirmed their existence. The experts thought that the spokes couldn't be real because they appeared to rotate at the speed of the planet, not the speed of the rings. Turns out they'd follow the magnetic field of the planet. Famous author Ernest Hemingway told his friends and family he believed the FBI was spying on him. They all told him he was paranoid or crazy. Years after his death, these suspicions were confirmed when the FBI declassified their spying on him. The Missoula megafloods that carved up the scablands of eastern Washington and Oregon. The geologist who proposed it was ignored when he proposed it, and then derided when he insisted. He lived long enough to see other geologists start to realize he was right, though, so there is some justice to be had. That stomach ulcers were caused by the Helicobacter pylori bacteria. Conventional medical wisdom was that stomach ulcers were caused by lifestyle factors. The bacteria theory was met with great skepticism and criticism. One of the researchers, Barry G. Marshall, resorted to proving it by ingesting the H. pylori bacteria. 22 years later, Marshall and Robin Warren were awarded the Nobel Prize for Physiology for their discovery that the platypus was a real animal. The researcher who received the first specimen back in Europe was certain he was being pranked and meticulously dissected it to try to find where it was sewn together. The Hawaii Mailbox Conspiracy. Hawaii's former chief of police and his wife, a deputy prosecutor, conspired to have their relative jailed for stealing a mailbox, so they could avoid legal issues regarding a property that the relative owned. When the relative's claims of being framed were first reported, a lot of people scoffed at the idea. Why would two politically powerful and well-off individuals attempt such an action? Then, as information slowly came out, the entire affair was laid bare, and it turned out the relative was right. Fallout from the issue has worked its way up beyond the chief of police position to the former prosecutor and other branches of government. A book was written on the subject by the federal public defender assigned to the case, Alexander Silvert. There is much more information in the online reviews. Herodotus described that sailors who sailed south along the African coast saw the sun rise in the north instead of the south. Many at the time thought this proved Herodotus was peddling absurd rumors. Even Herodotus himself expresses doubt about it in the text, but he was in fact correct, as the sun does that when you cross the equator. He also wrote that the Nile floods were caused by melting snows. Again, people thought this absurd. How can you have snow in the blisteringly hot and dry south? He was again proved correct, as the snows are on Kilimanjaro. The CIA is selling drags in black neighborhoods to raise money to arm and support a guerrilla army in Latin America. The business plot, where a bunch of businessmen decided FDR wasn't who they wanted in charge and attempted to install a retired general named Smedley Butler. Ernest Hemingway was convinced he was being spied on by the FBI, and no one believed him. Turns out he was. The hashtag Free Britney movement in the beginning was seen as people reading way too much into things and being weird. They were actually onto something. Meteor killed the dinosaurs, proposed by Luis Alvarez around 1980, who incidentally was one of the scientists in the Oppenheimer movie. The evidence was the rare element iridium in geologic layers that could only come from outer space. Then eventually more and more evidence was discovered to make this the predominant theory. Competing theories were volcanic devastation and evolutionary senescence. Let me tell you about one of the wildest instances of something seeming totally bonkers, but turning out to be spot on. Buckle up, because this story is a roller coaster of skepticism and vindication. Okay, so picture this. Back in the late 19th century, there was this dude named Dmitry Mendeleev. Now, Mendeleev wasn't your average Joe. He was a Russian chemist with a crazy idea that shook up the entire scientific community. He was like, hey, what if we organize all the known elements based on their properties and atomic weights? Sounds pretty straightforward, right? Well, not exactly. See, at that time, folks were scratching their heads trying to make sense of the jumble of elements popping up in experiments. There were gaps in the periodic table, and scientists were like, nah, that's just random nonsense. We'll figure it out eventually. But not Mendeleev. Homeboy was on a mission. So he starts arranging these elements on cards, shuffling them around like a mad scientist playing solitaire, and then boom. He notices something mind-blowing. When he arranges the elements in order of increasing atomic weight, suddenly, patterns start emerging like crazy patterns nobody had noticed before. Mendeleev was like, "Hold on to your test tubes, folks, because I'm about to drop some knowledge bombs." He predicts the properties of missing elements and straight up leaves gaps in his periodic table, saying, "Yo, we haven't discovered these yet, but mark my words, they're out there." Now, here's where it gets wild. Lo and behold, not long after Mendeleev unveils his periodic table wizardry, scientists start discovering new elements left and right. And guess what? They fit perfectly into those gaps Mendeleev left, like puzzle pieces snapping into place. It was like witnessing a scientific revolution in real time. People went from thinking Mendeleev was some kind of madman to praising him as a genius. His periodic table wasn't just a wild theory. It was legit science, baby. And that's the crazy but true tale of how Dmitri Mendeleev turned the world of chemistry upside down and inside out with his radical idea. So next time you think an idea sounds too out there to be true, just remember old Mendeleev and his game-changing periodic table. Gather round, folks, because I've got another mind-blowing tale for you. This one's about a little thing called plate tectonics, a theory that rocked the Earth's sciences, pun totally intended, and changed the way we see the world, quite literally. So back in the day, like way back, geologists were scratching their heads trying to make sense of the Earth's crust. They noticed similarities between the coastlines of continents, like Africa and South America, and thought, maybe they were connected at some point. But nobody could wrap their heads around how that could happen. I mean, continents moving. That's some sci-fi stuff right there. But along comes a maverick named Alfred Wegener. He's like, hold up. Now, what if the continents aren't just chilling in one spot? What if they're actually drifting around the planet? Cue the collective gasps from the scientific community. People were like, Wegener, buddy, you've been hitting the rocks a little too hard. But Wegener wasn't about to let the haters get him down. He starts gathering evidence, fossil records, geological formations, you name it, and piecing together this crazy puzzle. He even coins the term continental drift to describe his radical idea. Now, here's where things get interesting. Fast forward a few decades, and scientists start uncovering more and more evidence that supports Wegener's theory. They find matching rock formations on opposite sides of the Atlantic, fossils of the same species on continents separated by vast oceans, you name it. But it wasn't until the mid-20th century that the real breakthrough came. A couple of geologists, Harry Hess and Robert Dietz, proposed the idea of seafloor spreading. They're like, hey, what if new crust is constantly forming at mid-ocean ridges and spreading outward, pushing the continents around like bumper cars? Boom! Minds blown. Suddenly, everything starts falling into place. The continents fit together like pieces of a giant jigsaw puzzle, and the ocean floors provide the missing pieces. Plate tectonics is born, and the Earth's sciences are forever changed. So next time you're staring at a world map, just remember the wild ride that was the discovery of plate tectonics. It's a reminder that sometimes the craziest ideas turn out to be the most groundbreaking ones. Let me take you on a journey to the edge of the cosmos, where one astronomer's crazy idea turned out to be the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. Picture this. It's the early 20th century, and the universe is throwing some serious curveballs at astronomers. They're peering through their telescopes, trying to make sense of the cosmos, when suddenly things start getting weird. The universe appears to be expanding. Galaxies are drifting apart like cosmic breadcrumbs in a galactic soup. Now, enter one Georges Lemaitre, a Belgian priest and physicist with a mind as vast as the cosmos itself. He's like, hey, what if we rewind the cosmic clock? What if at some point in the distant past, the entire universe was compressed into a single point, a cosmic egg, if you will, and then boom. It exploded into existence, giving birth to everything we see today. Cue the collective jaw drops from the scientific community. They're like, Lemaitre, my man, that's some next-level thinking right there. But come on, a cosmic egg? That sounds more like a breakfast special than a scientific theory. But Lemaitre isn't deterred. He starts crunching the numbers, whipping up equations that would make Einstein himself do a double take. And lo and behold, his calculations point to one startling conclusion. The universe is indeed expanding, just as he predicted. Fast forward a few decades, and astronomers stumble upon the smoking gun, the cosmic microwave background radiation, a faint echo of the Big Bang itself. It's like finding the fingerprints of creation stamped across the cosmos. Suddenly, Lemaitre's crazy idea isn't so crazy anymore. It's the foundation of modern cosmology, the Big Bang Theory, the cornerstone upon which our understanding of the universe is built. We're diving deep into the world of physics, where one man's wild imagination changed the way we see the very fabric of reality itself. Picture this. It's the early 20th century, and the field of physics is in turmoil. Scientists are grappling with the bizarre behavior of particles on the atomic scale, and nothing seems to make sense. Then along comes this dude named Niels Bohr, with a twinkle in his eye and a head full of quantum dreams. Bohr's like, hey, what if electrons don't just orbit the nucleus of an atom like little planets? What if they exist in these weird fuzzy clouds of probability, popping in and out of existence faster than you can say quantum mechanics? Now, you can imagine the reaction from the scientific establishment. They're like, Bohr, my dude, have you been hitting the schnapps a little too hard? That's some crazy talk right there. But Bohr isn't fazed. He starts scribbling equations on napkins, sketching out diagrams that would make your head spin. And slowly but surely, his crazy idea starts to gain traction. Fast forward a few decades, and scientists are conducting experiments that confirm Bohr's wildest predictions. They're shooting particles through slits and watching as they behave like waves and particles at the same time, defying all logic and reason. Suddenly, Bohr's fuzzy clouds of probability aren't so crazy after all. They're the key to unlocking the mysteries of the quantum world, the strange realm where particles can be in two places at once and cats can be both alive and dead at the same time. Imagine this. It's the late 18th century, and the medical world is grappling with a mysterious illness that's sweeping through Europe like wildfire. People are dropping like flies, and doctors are scratching their heads, wondering what in the world is going on. Enter Edward Jenner, a country doctor with a hunch that's about to change the course of medical history. Jenner notices something peculiar. Milkmaids who've contracted cowpox, a mild disease similar to smallpox, seem to be immune to the deadly smallpox itself. Now, this might sound like a wild leap of logic, but Jenner's got a gut feeling that there's something to this observation. So he decides to put his theory to the test. He takes pus from a cowpox sore on a milkmaid's hand and injects it into a young boy named James Phipps. Yep, you heard that right. Injecting pus into a kid sounds like the stuff of nightmares. But Jenner's got a method to his madness. Lo and behold, James doesn't develop smallpox. Jenner's experiment is a success. He's discovered the world's first vaccine, a revolutionary breakthrough that would go on to save countless lives and eradicate one of the deadliest diseases in human history. Now you can imagine the reaction from the medical community. They're skeptical, to say the least, injecting people with cowpox pus. That sounds more like witchcraft than medicine. But Jenner isn't deterred. He publishes his findings, and slowly but surely, the world starts to take notice. Fast forward a few centuries and smallpox is no longer the scourge of humanity. Cast your mind back to the early 16th century, a time when the world was still grappling with the mysteries of the cosmos. Enter Nicolaus Copernicus, a polished astronomer with a vision that would shake the very foundations of our understanding of the universe. Copernicus had this crazy notion that the Earth wasn't actually the center of everything, that, in fact, it orbited around the Sun along with the other planets. Now, you've got to understand, this flew in the face of centuries of established belief. The prevailing wisdom at the time was that the Earth stood still at the center of the universe, with everything else revolving around it. But Copernicus wasn't one to be swayed by convention. He spent years poring over ancient texts, studying the movements of the stars, and crunching the numbers. And slowly but surely, he pieced together a revolutionary new model of the cosmos, the heliocentric theory. Now, you can imagine the reaction when Copernicus dropped this bombshell on the scientific community. People were downright scandalized. The idea that the Earth was just another planet orbiting the Sun? Preposterous. But Copernicus stood by his theory, even on his deathbed, and his legacy endured. His book, De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, on the revolutions of the celestial spheres, became the cornerstone of modern astronomy. Fast forward a few centuries and Copernicus's heliocentric model has become the foundation of our understanding of the universe. It paved the way for future astronomers like Galileo and Kepler to further refine our knowledge of the cosmos. So the next time you gaze up at the night sky, remembered Nicolaus Copernicus and his audacious vision. Because sometimes the craziest ideas are the ones that challenge our deepest held beliefs and propel humanity forward into a new era of understanding. Let me take you on a journey back to the 19th century, a time of great scientific discovery and exploration. Picture this. It's the year 1861, and a German physicist named Gustav Kirchhoff is tinkering away in his laboratory, pondering the mysteries of light and matter. Now, Kirchhoff wasn't your run-of-the-mill scientist. He had a knack for seeing patterns where others saw chaos, and he was about to make a discovery that would forever change our understanding of the universe. You see, Kirchhoff was studying the light emitted by different elements when they were heated up. He noticed that each element produced a unique pattern of colored lines, like a fingerprint etched into the fabric of space. But here's where things get really interesting. Kirchhoff takes his observations a step further and realizes that these patterns aren't just random. They're the key to unlocking the secrets of the stars themselves. He proposes the daring hypothesis that these spectral lines can tell us what elements make up distant stars and galaxies. In other words, by analyzing the light from a star, we can determine what it's made of without ever leaving the comfort of our own planet. Now you can imagine the skepticism that greeted Kirchhoff's idea. The notion that we could peer into the heart of a star just by studying its light seemed downright absurd to many of his contemporaries. But Kirchhoff wasn't deterred. He publishes his findings, and sure enough, other scientists start to take notice. They begin analyzing the spectra of stars and soon discover a treasured trove of information hidden within those colorful lines. Fast forward to today, and Kirchhoff's spectral analysis has become a cornerstone of astrophysics. It's allowed us to map the composition of galaxies billions of light years away, unravel the mysteries of black holes, and even uncover the presence of elusive dark matter. So the next time you gaze up at the night sky, remember Gustav Kirchhoff and his pioneering work. Because sometimes the craziest ideas are the ones that open our eyes to the wonders of the cosmos.